Hi, this is Toni Wade, the Compassionate Investor. And as I've always said, my favorite thing to talk about is transitional housing. Now we're going to spend today talking specifically about how you find the right property and then you set it up. So I like to find properties in a particular area that's in my niche. And if it's not in my niche, then why do it? So you really want to get something that's going to be in your specific niche. And once you find the property that's in your niche, there's a few key things that I like to make sure that are there so that I can move forward. Because one, you got to have transportation for the guests. Several of the guests that you're going to work with don't have their own vehicles. They have to rely on public transportation. So I like to make sure we're near a bus stop, at least in walking distance. I like to make sure there's a grocery store nearby, a convenience store, just so they can quickly get the things that they need. And then I also like to make sure there's a laundromat in case the one that we have at the property, we don't have one, because we typically like to do laundry facilities within the property, but sometimes you can't. So you have to be able to get and make it convenient for the guests that you're calling out. And once you've got those basic things in place and it fits in your niche, then you have found the right property. Another thing I like to consider in finding the right property is I consider the neighborhoods that I'm moving into, because you might be in a neighborhood where that neighborhood might not be open to the type of transitional housing you offer. All those things play a part in making sure that you have the right property. So you want to make sure that you're doing those things up front to get there. But then once you find it, the best part of it to me is setting the property up. Now, when I go into a property, I like to first go in and assess what type of construction I'm going to have to do. So when I go in, my goal is I'm looking first to see how many cameras I'm going to need, because we have cameras at all of our properties. And I like to see how many I'm going to be getting day one as I'm looking at the property or if I'm previewing the property. Then after I do that, I look at, okay, how many rooms will I actually utilize? Am I going to do 3 or am I going to do 4? I told you 3 is a roughly good number to work with, but if you can get more and you'll go through the proper channels to get you more, then you'll have to determine how many rooms you can get, and that will allow you to maximize your rents. And then as I'm walking through, I'm just looking for just aesthetically and just how things flow, because my goal is to make sure I'm maximizing the entire space so that I can accommodate as many individuals that I can there, but I like to make sure it moves smoothly. For instance, and I'm just going to tell you, I know some people who have tried to put people in basements. Now, me personally, I don't even like doing basements, but you have to make sure that those things are going to be conducive to what your needs are. Obviously, you know, I don't do basements at all in any of my properties unless I turned it into training, and I would have to have a certain height in the basement for us to have head level. I also have to have my egress windows to make sure if we had to escape, we have that. But you can utilize basements if it makes sense. But I typically don't buy properties where I utilize the basement. But if you were to, that is a great training room that you can create for individuals, or a nice relaxing room where they can all come together and congregate. Now, once you gone through and you sort of looked at where cameras can go, you've looked through and found where you can maximize your rents, then it's a matter of, you know, getting the work done and then setting up the units. Now, there's basic things that I like, and you have to think about the things that you like to have, they're going to want to have too. So when I'm looking at the property in the rooms, every room must have a bed, desk, chair, lamp, pictures, mattress, of course, the dresser, you've got the nightstand. I like to have those basic things in everyone's room so that they can have the things that they need, because nobody wants to come into a room and always have to be on their bed. So you want to be able to create that space so if they wanted to stay in their room, there's someplace else where they can sit. Now, I will tell you, some people, if you, depending on the size of the room, if you want to add an armchair for comfort, you can do that too. But I typically make sure they at least have a desk and a chair, because my whole thing is training. I like to provide training to the guests that are working with me, so I like to make sure they have a place in their room where they can do that. But you get to pick and choose how you want to do that. Now, here in St. Louis, I've got an amazing resource for that type of stuff. He actually gets me everything for anywhere from $300 to $400 a room. So that's the cost that I multiply by however many rooms that I have. And then in the living rooms, I really only like to have a sofa and maybe an armchair, somewhere where they can relax a little bit. And I like having desks and a bookcase for books. I don't have TVs in there. And why? Because I'm not promoting TV, I'm promoting learning. Any opportunity I can either get them into, like doing meditation or learning, but I want them to be comfortable having another place where they can congregate and come together and talk together. That is amazing. But I don't put TVs in people's rooms. They can have some things that they bring in themselves. Those are the type of things that we do. Now, as it relates to utilities, because you know you're providing all utilities in these properties, you have to make sure you've covered all of them. So you've got your electric, gas, sewer, water, you got your trash, I think I just said that, but you also have your internet. Those are the things that we have, but those are all the things that we incorporate in the property, and I know exactly what utilities I'm going to have. Now, as I mentioned, the internet, depending on which niche you're focusing on, you may or may not want to do that. At the very least, I do it for my cameras, because all my cameras have DVRs and a system, and I have it attached to that so that it makes it easier. So those are the type of things that you need to think about as you create the space, finding your property, and then setting that property up for success. So we'll be back in just a moment.